Hey everyone, what is going on? I'm Matthew Oliver, and this is Still Water Alchemy, the podcast, episode one, Just the Tip. On this episode, we are going to be teasing out what this podcast entails, setting some intentions, and most likely referencing a Sex and the City quote at least once. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay. So this podcast idea has been in the ether for many, many moons. Even back in 2020, I was getting a lot of DMs and messages of people saying, you should do a podcast. I would listen to anything you do. I love the way you speak. And it's not that I was opposed to ever exuding and producing content in this manner. But when I do something, I do it with such purpose and I want to be able to show up fully. I think there is a quote from Sex and the City in the vein of when I RSVP to a party, I make it my business to come. Samantha Jones. And that's truly how I feel in any regard, but especially in business, because that accountability, that commitment to excellence and being of service in a way that people can rely on in whatever fashion the individual decides, I think is really important. And that commitment, that loyalty, that clear communication are just values that I really relate to and embody on a day-to-day basis. So when it comes to Still Water Alchemy and this podcast, as it sits right now, my goal and intention is to show up and produce content at least 2 times a month. Now, that may change. There may be more episodes. I'm doing this podcast and launching it with all of this Gemini energy in the cosmos. And so part of me thinks that when I hop on this mic, I might just never get off and there'll just be episodes that come out regularly. But I also want to give myself grace because I've been doing this now for 5 years in terms of this spiritual business and creating content. And for those of you who have been here since the beginning, also know that we started out as Still Water Tarot, just doing tarot readings, it's still a lot. And it was great getting my toe in the water, so to speak, showing up at conventions and festivals and all of these different things. But then I knew that I wanted to not be contained in one box. My chart ruler is in the sign of Aquarius. So if you know, you know. And I also don't like being bored. Like my moon is in Aries, my natal Mercury is in Sag. I have done things in the past with Stillwater where I would do monthly tarot scopes and put them on Instagram and YouTube. And then I do the week ahead breakdowns with the astrology. And I did those breakdowns for 2 years, like almost two and a half. For me, though, I don't like doing something if it's not feeling inspired, if it's not feeling aligned. And the whole point of a podcast and with anything is that you get to grow and evolve, that there get to be different facets of your being. All of your lived experiences get to show up, which I know is very obvious, but I think in life, when we've shown up to something and we value loyalty and commitment, that we don't want to let people down. But if there's anything that I've learned, and you can take this if it resonates, that if I'm not happy, if I'm not showing up for myself, then I'm just going to keep attracting situations where I'm putting other people first, where I'm making sure that they're happy before I'm happy. At the time when I was doing all those things, the tarot scopes, the week aheads, I truly enjoyed doing them and it felt good to be of service in that way. But then when it didn't, I stopped. And I'm very proud of myself for being able to pivot and to do things that feel in alignment so that I only ever attract things that are in alignment. So even with the intention of showing up 2 times a month, creating content, and not just with astrology, but with mindset and universal laws and personal stories and things that I've learned along the way that I know can be of service in some way. That's the whole point of this podcast. And it'll be exciting to see how it grows and evolve as the years progress. I can often see myself interviewing people or traveling or just doing certain things because also, if you are watching the video component, we see that we are joined here by Athena. I bought a bust of her. I've been doing a lot more research and delving into Athena. Such a vibe. It also is, sidebar. So Athena is the goddess of strategic war. Ares, god of war. Ares spelled Ares, not Aries, like the constellation. But when they ever did war games and Athena and Ares were competing against one another, Athena always won. And so this energy of a divine feminine being smarter and thus more powerful than a masculine is very alluring to me, and how we can use that energy with this Pluto and Aquarius activation to see significant change on a macro level, and then also what I'm doing on a micro level. But that's a whole other conversation. But if you know, you know. The whole point is there's a video component to this podcast that if you want to watch on YouTube to see the beauty, to see the vibes, I trust that also my bust of Athena will just be like glittering in all these like jewelries and adornments as the episodes go along. And then, of course, we always have the roses and the beauty to represent Venus as well. And with that being said, to go back on what I was mentioning previously, is I come from a background in academia where you have a choice when you're doing research, just add another page to the book of studies that have already been done so that you can acquire your master's, you can acquire your PhD and keep going. Because anyone who's done research knows, especially on academic level, that there is competition, there's funding, there's ethics, there's having to manipulate your schedule to fit your participants against your own schedule and relationships. It can be a lot, it can be overwhelming. And when you are deciding to put yourself in a position where you're not just adding another page to the book, you are creating a whole new section of the library. You are being the blueprint, you are being the reference for future scholars and people who want to study that field to go to your work. You're not just producing for the sake of producing, which there's nothing wrong. There's that field of stream, especially now in 2024, where it's like, just put content out there. You never know what's going to stick. That's fine. And I'm also not a fan of paralysis by analysis, where nothing's ever good enough, so you never release anything. But why I'm saying this is because it fits into the intention, the apex, just the tip, if you will, where if you set the intention of showing up in a certain capacity at a certain frequency or time interval, it gives you structure. It gives you a place where you can grow from. And I always feel, and this is just me personally, that you might as well show up as your best, because then the best keeps getting better and better. And sometimes your best is just getting the job done. What I've seen in clients is sometimes they hold themselves back and their quote unquote worst is still better than someone's best, because we're all growing, we're all at different levels. So with all that being said, my intention here is to show up beautifully, with purpose, with intent, so that no matter when you find this episode, whether it's in 2024 or in 2044, that any of these episodes will offer knowledge, will offer entertainment, will offer relief, will offer insight into what you are going through. And that as the podcast grows and evolves, as I grow and evolve, that there'll be different facets and different evolutions of this that get to serve the collective in a beautiful way that all just gets to sharpen your own spiritual tools, your gifts, your intuition. Because once you do that, and that is, if we're getting down to one of the core principles of Still Water Alchemy as a whole, is to provide all of this knowledge, these resources, these tools. Whether or not you want to use them is always up to you. You always have the choice whether or not you enact these things on a day-to-day basis. But it's another tool through a podcast that if you are driving, if you are on a walk, if you're in a position where you don't want to watch something, you just want to have these words in your ears, that there gets to be podcasts that are just mini meditations. There's going to be podcasts where we're talking about more in-depth spiritual or astrological topics. Who knows? The monthly tarot scopes may come back. The week ahead astrology breakdowns may come back. I'm not closing off anything. I'm just excited that with all of this beautiful Gemini energy, with these new activations that are happening for me personally, that this gets to be another extension of how I get to be of service to the collective. And no matter when you're listening to this, I implore you to start setting intentions for yourself, whether it be day to day of just what you're wanting to get done in terms of chores, whether it be in your job, whether it be in your marriage, your relationships, it does not matter. It really gets to be this conduit, this focal point where if you have the structure and the accountability and the time that you're going to show up, it makes it an identity. It makes it part of who you are. So if you get confused or lost, you're like, right, I go to the second corner with the blue house with the gold roof. I turn right and then I walk straight for a mile and I'll find my way back home. No matter where I am, I just have to find that blue house with the gold roof. And then I know I'm right around the corner to getting back to me, who I am, and what I represent. Because that's all we can ever do, right? Is show up fully who we are in that moment, not trying to appease other people, not try to fulfill someone else's ideal of who we are, but who we are. And I think even just going full circle back to a character, a persona like Samantha Jones, is that she didn't apologize. She was never trying to be someone that she was not. Even when all the people around her were projecting upon her, judging her, she still showed up as herself. And I think now, 25 plus years later, that character that Kim Cattrall created has stood the test of time. And so if any of us can take a page from Samantha Jones's book, it's that. When you show up completely who you are, no matter what shifts happen throughout your life, people recognize real. Whether it's through your actions, your words, your energy, they will always recognize that. And the barometer of what that is to you and what matters to you, you get to decide and no one else. All right. So thank you for tuning in today. I am really grateful for everyone, for all the love, for all the energy that you put forth into me, into Still Water Alchemy, and into your own lives. It really brings me a lot of joy when people come back and they share what has worked, what victories they have culminated. Because again, I feel like this is what we're here for, this earth school, to learn things, to get better, to elevate the collective consciousness. And I think that's all I got for today. That might have been that might have been more than just a tip, but stay tuned for more episodes. You can do all of the human things like hit subscribe, write a review. Of course, I would greatly appreciate it. If you are watching on Still Water Alchemy's YouTube channel, you can leave comments, which I will look at, respond if and when I can, and then take it all into consideration as I craft new and upcoming episodes. So for now, stay blessed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Wow, 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 wow. Talk to speaker. Let's just test this out.